Profilo. Oh, hello. Let's give a round of applause. Does it happen soon? I don't hear it. Oh, that was not bad. Hello, MoB Kaffeeklatsch. Welcome. Episode 158. I hope that you are all staying nice and warm because the cold this morning when I took the Valkyries to school, it was 21 degrees. It was temperature. It was frigid. Let me just close some things here. Actually, let me do this. Comments. I can see the comments here. Let's see. Everybody see me? Everybody can hear? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Hello, hello, hello. I want to kind of put the comments on the screen, kind of change. Let's see if it does. There it goes. I like that. It's so good, actually. Okay, let me say good morning to everyone. Hope you guys can all see and hear me. And we're not in the car this time. Let's see. Good morning, Chris. Chrisman, Dos, Paige. Good dia. Good morning. Hello, Don. Welcome. Sheber, hello. I want to say Gwendrin 2. Welcome. Rainy and 51. Yikes. Wendy, good morning. C.W. Gibson, 25 degrees. Good morning. Let's see. Heather, good morning. Yeah, it happens on YouTube a lot, Gwendrin. Rebecca, good morning. Oh, wow. 116-pound puppy at 116 pounds. What kind of dog is that, Rebecca? Michelle, good morning. Let's see who else is here. I said hello to Heather, no sound. Okay. Can you hear me now? You sound like an old Sprint commercial. Can you hear me now, Heather? All right. Let me know if you can. And how is everyone doing today, aside from cold? Paige, it says laggy and broken Tiffany. Yeah, it was actually better in the car, like on the phone. We had no hiccups. It's just a whole different platform. So yeah. Oh yeah, that was a big dogs, Rebecca. Yeah, 116 is actually, I think it gets heavier. Those dogs get, I think, like 130, something like that. If I'm not mistaken. I'd have to research it, have to Google it. But they get big. I hope you have the space for something that large, for a puppy that large. Okay. Let's see, we got 10 people. So let's start with the shout outs. A huge shout out. I'm seeing a lot more people on YouTube. So huge shout out to all of you on YouTube. It's acceptable video wise. Good. How about the sound? Is it good? Let me know, Chris. A shout out to all of you on YouTube. Don't forget to support us on at Bitten Peaches Publishing. Hit the like, the notification bell, and share. So that way you can find when we put these things out, when we're starting, you get a notification so you know. Instagram. What am I doing on Instagram? Instagram right now I'm doing personal stuff. Like I just got a sandbag, so I'm doing kind of sandbag torture photos. So, but because I'm in the middle of Nemesis, well, not the middle, actually near the end of Nemesis, I'm going to hit you all with a bunch of Nemesis excerpts towards the once it's out, and then we'll start ramping up a lot of Instagram stuff for the end of this month to the beginning of next year. We'll kind of start getting regular on Instagram stuff. Zazzle. All right, so make sure we can get the links for Zazzle. We have a fantastic swag store. This is Zazzle swag. This is not Zazzle swag. This comes from Savage Lineage. This is a veteran-owned company that produces shirts and stuff, kind of all kinds of things. But we have a fantastic swag store on Zazzle, and our store is M&S, EMANDES. Go there, get your swag. We have so much awesome swag. There's the link. Let me just do that. Let me get one. Here's the link. See how StreamYard is behaving. Show it. Link should be coming up shortly on the screen. There it is. Thank you, Dolly. Dolly is here. Say hi, Dolly. Heard that? That was Dolly. Wasn't me. Dolly. Thank you both. But you guys are amazing. You guys like on the ball. So there's a link. The RF link at the end. The reference link is to help our analytics. So please use that when you go to our swag store. Oh yeah, all muscles and pays attention. As long as she pays attention, Rebecca, because at that size, you really can't muscle that dog around. She has to be trained for sure. A huge shout out to our patrons at Patreon. I can't even begin to explain to you how explosive our our channel has become. So let me just shout out the new patrons. Our Patreon has gone like crazy big. It's just like explosion. It's just been like a Montague and Strong situation. Okay, new patrons: Kay Annette Sherman, Niall Danella Parks, G Love, Lana Von Funk, Susan Budaliar. I apologize if I mangle any of these names. Mark Beckenbach and Krista H. I want to say Jimeno. If it's not, if that's correct, I apologize, Krista. Thank you all to all of you all the patrons, because you guys are amazing. You go above and beyond. You guys support us. And if you're on Patreon, you're getting exclusive stories that are, wow, so much fun to write and even more fun to read. So if you're on Patreon, share with other people to get on Patreon as well, because it helps us, it's the extra support that really helps. And you also get stories that are just for you. So you guys are amazing. Thank you, Chris. We had the 3 new YouTube members. Yeah, I think we're gonna get more once I start the weekly Warrior Wisdom stuff again. I think we'll get some more. I'm gonna try and push it a bit more. Let me just remove this. Okay. I don't want to get into the updates just yet, but yeah, let's get into some of the updates. First, let's discuss. I think we can discuss Nemesis, right? So, and let me just put on this link because we want you to join Patreon, so you should know where to go to join Patreon. Do you guys have any questions about those of you that are kind of reading it? Any questions about Nemesis? Hello, Marie. Welcome. I'm rounding. Okay, how do I want to put this? It has gone semi-viral. Welcome, Audrey. Did you make soup for all of us? Welcome. Glad to have you here, Audrey. So I just want to clarify something really quick, Audrey. I didn't see a question from you this week, but you did have a question for the last episode. So I'm just going to use those, and your streak will continue. Okay? Just let me know if that's okay with you. Does anyone have any questions about Nemesis if you're reading it? And okay, so I can hint at the first place. I'm not going to give you exactly where they are, Chris, because that would be kind of a spoiler. But the first place they're going to is Liverpool. That's all I can say. If I say more than that, it's going to spoil it. But there are a few places I want to have them go to a lot of places, but then the book just becomes a travelogue of places to destroy. So the first place they're going to hit, which is where they are right now, that's the scene that I'm writing right now, is Liverpool. And I can't say more than that. I can't, because it'll give it away. But then from there, they're going to go to different places, different climates, different areas. Most of them will have some kind of magical significance or some kind of ancient significance. And they'll be going there either chasing Dira or Dira chasing them, and so forth and so on. And they'll be having fights within that. Yeah. Exactly, Audrey. So I'll be using those questions today. So your streak is unbroken. All right? So that's what's going to happen with the places that they're going to. Yes, Liverpool. So when you see where they are in Liverpool, then you'll know why they're in Liverpool. All right, Chris, can we have the author that we're going to promo? I'm not saying any more about the Liverpool thing because then it's just going to give it away. I don't want to give it away. I want to, but I can't. How's that? Let me see if I can adjust this. This is just me I don't like adjusting things when the show is happening because it starts getting funky. Like streamer doesn't like. Okay, let's just do that. That's good. Increase the font. All right. So we are that way I can actually read what's on the screen. So we're going to promote John Corwin, Dead Man's War, a vigilante mystery action thriller. Amos Carver, book 11. That's great. John's writing those books out there. It's on Amazon. There's the link. Please pick it up because we support our indie authors, and make it a point to pick up the book and read it and leave him a review, please. John Corwin has done some really interesting stuff, some fun stuff. He has included Monty Strong in some of his ads, which is really fun to read. I don't think he's done it in any of the books, but in the ads, he's done it, which is a lot of fun. So please support John Corwin. Support, and if you have any other indie authors that you're reading that we may not know about, let us know. We'll put it in the L3, and then we'll let everybody else on so we can support our indie authors. It's really important. Marie says you should consider them leveling Dracula's castle. It doesn't get more magical than that. Here's the thing. I've considered like hitting actual mythological, semi-real places, but I'm just wondering about the feedback. There was one, Marie Stein got really upset. I'm not shouting you out, Marie. She got really upset that we demolished a part of the Tower of London. So I'm not trying to get a whole bunch of like, how dare you blow up Dracula's castle, fans after me. But everything is fair game, especially in things like that, I was thinking about Stonehenge. Stonehenge would be a great place to kind of have a fight. Imagine in the middle of Stonehenge having a battle. It's still kind of on the table, and maybe knocking one of the stones over. That would be so typical Monty Strong. So there are a lot of places they can go to that would be acceptable. Heather says you should go to Whitberry and play among the ruins. Yeah, I know the castle's real. Welcome, Laura. Hello. Glad you can make it. Yeah, but Vlad, see, that's the thing. I can't bring Vlad because then it becomes a vampire story. So I don't want to have to bring Vlad into the story. Them destroying the castle, or at least part of the castle, would be fun. But then I'm sure we get a little bit of pushback from the Dracula purists. Like, how could you have them go there and destroy that? Michigo's gonna get upset or something or another, So we'll see. Stonehenge is another one that, although real and has mystical significance, you'd be surprised at how many people are touchy about Stonehenge. I don't know why. For me, I guess it's important. It is, but it's just stones arranged in a circle. I'm sure Monty and Simon can pay to visit and not break Stonehenge. Maybe. We'll see. I think Stonehenge would be good to blow up. At least, not even blow up. You know what would be fun to do in Stonehenge? Rearrange the stones. See? See what Wendy is saying? The Stonehenge, that the pagans can come after me. And it's true. There are people who are really, out of all the henges that exist, because these are real things and they're scattered all over the world, henges. Stonehenge being the most popular has a lot of, I want to say followers, or I guess supporters of Stonehenge. It might be Glastonbury. I've heard of that. But what I might do is we might rearrange the stones. Like they might knock them down and not remember the order they were in. And so have like Monty and Simon rearrange the stones. See, no, not Stonehenge. I love how people listen, it's not just you guys, not just Stonehenge. I've had people in New York when I've destroyed things in New York where people get really touchy about certain things in New York. And I'm really sensitive about New York because we had, tragedy in New York about things like that. But there are places in New York that are like horrendous, like ugly, that need to be like torn down. People still very sensitive about it. And whether it's nostalgia or, things like that. Easter Island. I didn't think about Easter Island. And thank you. That's a good one. Maybe they can unearth the statues and have one just come and topple over. Like there's just so many possibilities. They can visit the pyramids, and like punch a hole in one of them. Good morning, Connie. Welcome. There are a lot of it doesn't always have to be destructive either. They could go to these places without having to blow a hole in them. But because they're fighting Dira, and Dira really doesn't care, there you go. You know, it's gonna if they're going there and they're fighting. It's not that they're going there on a tourist. Like it's not like they're visiting the places. Ooh, this is a really great place. No, it's we're going there. I'm gonna try and kill you. You're gonna try and kill me. Everything that's around me is collateral damage. And so what happens happens. You know, the first place that I'm going to in Liverpool is gonna get blown apart. And that one I can guarantee you is gonna get blown apart, like rubble. So will that be the trend everywhere? Maybe, maybe not. It is monsoon strong and peaches, so these things can happen. I'm just preparing you for these things that can come at you. No, see, I couldn't see places like the Parthenon, Heather. I don't want to destroy the Parthenon because it's first of all, one, it's already a ruin, which means it's pretty broken up already. But it has such historical significance, and I think they already visited the Parthenon previously, and the Parthenon managed to survive. So I don't think they want to go back there and destroy it. Yeah, like see, cutting the heads off the head off the accidentally cutting the head off one of the Easter Island heads, Easter Island statues, it's like a whoops, you know, one of them have the head fall, roll over. I think that would be fun. Am I gonna catch so much heat for this stuff? Yeah. Yeah, I don't see the White House. I wouldn't go because it's political. I don't want to get into any political craziness. So no, I wouldn't go there. And the White House is already getting wrecked. So that's just gonna be rubbing salt into a wound. So we're not gonna do that. Okay, let me give you some of the updates. To scare you getting closer. Um, Updates. So if you have questions about Nemesis, you could ask, and if I can answer, I will. But you know, yeah, they don't need another pantheon after them. That would cause, but that would be fun too. Having another pantheon be like, hey, you know that monument to the deity that you guys blew up that one time? Yeah, we want to have a word with you. That would be fun. So updates. The Fantastic Fathers book, which is the book on fatherhood that is in the middle of edits because I haven't gotten to any edits and have one that book is ready for edits. It's already had deep edits done, so I just gotta kind of implement the edits. That should be coming out this month. There's a Morgan's Man story that's wrapping up, which is The Visit. That's the story. If you're on Patreon, so this is a good reason for you to be on Patreon, right? The Morgan's Man stories, the assignments that Deathless / Simon is going through are only on Patreon, and we really aren't going to put them anywhere else for a long time. So if you really want to read these stories, and I suggest you do, not because I wrote them, but because when I sit down to read the parts that I've written prior to the ones that are being put up, I get lost in the story. It's just so much fun. So you should really consider joining the Patreon and then reading the Morgan's Man story. They're just so much fun. So the most recent one, The Visit, you're gonna have part 9 and part 10, which is the last part, dropping at the end of this month or sometime this month. They'll be out this month. And then there's another one, the assignment number 3. And I guess I could tell you the title is called The Substitute, and this is the one. These out of all the suggestions that people gave, this is the one where Dex and the Morgan are leaving the school to go like away for a few days, and they're leaving Deathless in charge of watching Cece and Peanut and watching the school to make sure nothing gets destroyed. And that's going to be that story where Simon has to kind of be like a substitute teacher / babysitter, and Cece and Peanut are going to run. So he has to be Deathless because they're so strong that if he tries to do this just as Simon, they're really going to run rings around him. So at least with Deathless, he has abilities to kind of counter how much power these two girls have. So he's going to be watching the school and watching the girls, and Dex and the Morgan are just going to go out for like a weekend or something and leave poor Simon alone with those two girls, the Mayhem twins. So that'll be fun. That's going to be a fun story. Because the last few stories have been, I don't want to say dark, but they've been really serious. This one's a little bit more, it's lighter, and it's going to be fun. Making one a Golem. I already had a Golem. I think there's a book called The Golem. So, and that's way back book 10, if I'm not mistaken. And so I don't want to touch upon a golem again. There's a lot of fun lore and historical kind of like information regarding golems and how they're created and how they're controlled. But I did all that in book 10. I don't want to revisit that for a while. There will be a golem. That's not for like future books. But there's a golem coming up much later on. Cecilia trial. Well, it's not it's her test, and that's not that's gonna be that's not in the Patreon stories. That's gonna be in the actual either the short stories, the Brew and Chew. It starts there, and then it goes into the main series. So someone was asking me to map the series, and one of my most avid readers was saying, "I wonder why these authors write these series but don't number them." I'm not going to mention any names. And when I started, so I've told this story. When I started M&S, it was going to be a trilogy. I didn't have to number them. It was going to be 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so why would I need to number them? Since we're on book 29, I don't think I can go back and start numbering these books at this point. So we're gonna just have to figure out a different way to, I guess, number them somehow. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it. The girls will be pranking Simon. So the assignment will be for Simon to watch the girls and maybe possibly teach them some of the things that he's learned as deathless, because he has these abilities as deathless, and they're just gonna make his life miserable. And don't forget, he has Peaches, but they have Rags and Kai. So it's also all the bond mates are gonna be there too. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be insane. So yeah, and Peaches is definitely gonna be bribed to go against Simon, because come on, Rags is there. Rags, the beautiful and lovely Rags. That's like Peaches' kryptonite. He's done. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Okay, so that's what's happening in terms of that. There's gonna be a sci-fi secret story coming out at the end of this month that I'm not gonna, it's like mum's the word on that one right now. And it was requested that I continue the blackjacks. So I will have to find a way to get the blackjacks done. Some blackjack stories, maybe the next one, early next year to continue that series. That series only has 6 books, but I'll see if I can continue. This new sci-fi story is a complete departure from that type of story, from the blackjack story. It's a little more intimate in terms of there's only like 1 main character, 2 main characters, 3 if you count the ship, and there's a major antagonist, and it's basically the tension and dynamic between those 2 characters, and one is a criminal and one is a law officer, and the tension between that and Chase. So kind of think of like The Fugitive and that kind of tension, that kind of push and pull. It's very different from the Blackjacks, which is a whole crew with all the different personalities and them going on different adventures, which is more think Firefly in terms of the story itself. Yes, that's different. Yeah, I'm not calling him Frank. That would be complete and utter destruction, Michelle, if we call him Frank. Okay, now on the updates, Frozen Fire. I know Frozen Fire has more reviews, but I want to ask you guys to please leave your reviews. If you read the book, please leave your reviews, and the reviews help the book. It's social proof that helps the book. So please leave your reviews if you read it. Okay, I would really appreciate it. It helps me and it helps the book, and it gets the word out. So it's really important. And Monty sits and sips. Yeah, so Monty's not going to be there for this. Monty, because they're just calling him Deathless. So Monty's not going to be there. It's just going to be Simon alone. And if Peaches turns on him and gets a bribe by the girls, it's really going to be him alone. And so we'll see how he deals with 2 little girls with phenomenal cosmic power and 3 bond mates, because Peaches might be against him on this. Well, Peaches may not be against him, but he's going to be neutralized by Rags. If Cece can get Rags to get Peaches out of the picture just by going on a walk or something and leave Simon/Deathless on his own, Simon's done. He's in trouble. So we'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, that story. So let's see. What do we have? All right, so those are the updates. So I'm kind of going through these early because we have 2 episodes worth of questions to get to today. Because if you remember our carpool Kaffeeklatsch that week, which is our last Kaffeeklatsch, we had questions, but I couldn't get to them because I was on the phone, and so everything was kind of stripped down to bare bones. So I have 2 sets of questions that I want to get to today. Some of them they're all really good. All the questions are awesome. And so I want to get to all the questions, the previous Kaffeeklatsch and this week's Kaffeeklatsch. And so I want to make sure I have time to address them all. Okay. Yeah, so we've kind of gone through everything fairly fast. Questions have been asked as to why this sci-fi story. This Okay, so here's an example of when a story ambushes you out of nowhere and you have to write it. Because my amazing wife asked me, "Why aren't you writing another Blackjacks?" Right? And I was like, and that's a really good question. Of course not. She didn't ask like that. She was like, "Why don't you, darling husband, write, continue the story of the Blackjacks?" Right? She doesn't sound harsh like the way I just said. But and it's a really good question. It's a legitimate question, and it's hard to explain. It's kind of like the same reason and how the Monty and Strong series started. I was in, you guys all know the story. I was in Sepia Blue. I was writing Sepia Blue, and Monty and Simon slid in and said, "You need to kind of do this," and then gave me like the whole beginning of the first book. It was like, right. That's kind of what happened with this sci-fi story. And as I'm writing it, it feels very much like a Monty and Strong kind of energy. It's not the same because it's not the same characters. It's a whole kind of different context and setting, and the background's different. But the energy behind the story is the same. And it's one of those stories. And this is one kind of like my. I'm going on several tangents here. This is one of my beliefs that all creators are given ideas, and if you act on the idea, it's yours. And if you don't act on the idea, another creative will get the idea and run with it. So it's kind of like the idea is out there in the ether, and if you act on it, it becomes your idea, and you add your particular uniqueness to it. This is one of those ideas that was like just came at me out of nowhere. I was driving, and I got the idea. The title just came to me. I can't tell you the title because I'm giving anything away, but the title came to me immediately. Right? Which I'm going to get so much ribbing for from a particular wife of mine, who is going to just when you see the title, you'll know why I'm going to get so much ribbing for it. But the title came to me, the main character came to me, and the antagonist came to me, like all boom, 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 like it was in sequence, right? And then I said, okay, what am I gonna do with this? It's like, I already have a sci-fi crew. I have a sci-fi group. Why would I want to have another one? I said, no, but this is not a sci-fi crew. This is like a whole different dynamic. And this is a story, and then I got the whole story, and it's like, wow, that sounds really good. So that's where we are, and that's why sometimes stories will come at you in a way that you're not expecting, and you'll just have to kind of either you have to follow them and get them down so you can write them out. Like in this case of a story, I've heard filmmakers the same thing. They get a concept idea, and sometimes they have to make that movie, um, or you let it go, and someone else will pick it up and run with that story. That's my opinion. If the stories are there, they come to you. You either accept them or you don't, and then they just. If you accept them, you make them your own, and if you don't accept them, then someone else will make it their own. Yeah, I think because I love Star Wars so much, and I mean, I'm a product of the generation that grew up with Star Wars. Like I am pre-Star Wars and I am post-Star Wars, right? I was around before Star Wars existed, and I was there when Star Wars. I was online at the Ziegfeld Theater and I took a day off school to go watch Star Wars. So I'm there. Oh, Mariba, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for dropping in. Don't be sorry. Thank you for coming in and saying hello at least. So I'm a product of the generation that was before Star Wars and a product of this generation after Star Wars, right? But also, even before Star Wars, we had Battlestar Galactica, Space 1999. We had Star Trek. There's so many things that were prior to Star Wars that kind of primed us for something like a space opera like Star Wars. Like prior to Star Wars, there wasn't much exactly like it, but after Star Wars, everything was influenced by it in some way or another, right? So, and as Chris says, because I love Star Wars so much, and because I love sci-fi, and prior to like the film or the visual media, I grew up with Asimov and Heinlein and Herbert. I mean, I grew up reading sci-fi stuff, and Heavy Metal was one of the magazines that I had a subscription to. Not an official subscription, but my comic book store would collect it for me every month. It had a bag for me, and I could pick it up every month. I think I was underage for Heavy Metal. Heavy Metal had some racy stuff. But it was all sci-fi. I also collected, yeah, Buck Rogers, Lost in Space. I'm sure some of you remember Lost in Space. Those of you that are less young. Um, and even things like those really old shows that I grew up watching, and even like some Twilight Zone episodes, some Outer Limits episodes. These things all, in one way or another, they influence who you become, especially if you're going to become a creative individual. There's going to be some spillover or some distillation of all of that information getting kind of put into your brain, into your childhood brain, and then coming out somehow, and then boom, turning into something. When he says if Simon and Peaches are involved, I see it more towards Spaceballs. Yeah, that's. But even Spaceballs, I mean, that was really such a great parody of Star Wars. It was just, it was funny. I don't think you can make that movie today, Spaceballs. It's just too crazy. But that's kind of why that sci-fi story came out, and it's going to be a novella because I try not to write really long sci-fi stories because they get, when you write really long sci-fi stories, you can really run into epic sci-fi stories, and that's just, I don't have the bandwidth for an epic sci-fi story. So I like novellas because I can make them short, punchy, powerful, action, some drama, and then the next story. So it's an ongoing story, but in episodes. And it's very much in my head like episodes. Chris says, Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, twisted my sci-fi in other directions. Yes, anything is possible. Listen, I watched Twilight Zone, like sometimes I would watch it like this, because some of the episodes for my young brain, because I was really young watching Twilight Zone, I don't know what my parents were thinking when we watched Twilight Zone. And worse, Outer Limits, because Outer Limits was like, it was really on the edge. Think an early version of Black Mirror. Now, what's Black Mirror now was Twilight Zone back then, and Outer Limits. And some of their stories, I mean, the great thing about those stories, like those shows, was it exposed you to amazing writing. Like even Star Trek, like the original series, the writing in those shows, I didn't recognize it as amazing writing because I didn't have any frame of reference. But as I'm watching these shows and I'm looking at what's happening and I'm realizing the story, and I was exposed to some amazing, amazing writing at a very, very young age, formative ages that shape your thinking and how you process things, and that whole thing about anything is possible. And when Star Wars came around, it wasn't like, oh my God, that can never happen. It was like, wow, yeah, this totally works. And when you're sitting watching the opening scene of Star Wars and you see a small ship go by, right? And I was in the Ziegfeld, so we had surround sound. The small ship's going by, right? The ambassador ship, and it's going ahead of you. So you're getting a back view of it. It's going down, and there's laser fire coming at it. And the laser fire is sounding like everybody ducked because of the surround sound. And then you get the first exposure of a Star Destroyer. And it's this big wedge that just comes down and just goes and goes on and on and on and on. And you're like, how big is this ship? Oh my God. It was crazy. And it's very hard to explain, unless you were there, it's very hard to explain that feeling of awe. Like, yeah, I get this. I totally been waiting for this. That's episode, Chris. Time enough. If you haven't seen, first of all, Burgess Meredith, also known as the Penguin in the Batman show, right? The Batman TV show. And Rocky's trainer later on, he was much older. But time enough is like he's the last man on earth. Now he has time to read because all he wanted to do was read, and everyone has disappeared off the face of the earth. So that's why the episode's titled Time Enough. So he's the last man on earth. He had all the time in the world to read, and his glasses break. That is wow. You're just like, oh, no, no, no. Oh yeah, Audrey, that one was fantastic too. The William Shatner episode with the creature on the wing. That was, and that's when you really saw that William Shatner. That was his method of acting. Like, what he did on Star Trek was basically Shatner. Maybe a little extreme, but it was Shatner. As a person who wears glasses, I do, and to see that his glasses break, even though he has all the books, all the time, it was one of those. It was a perfect Twilight Zone twist. And it was basically a Twilight Zone twist that got you like, no, no. Of course, us being rational, I would have said just go to any optometrist store that still exists and look around and see if you can find a pair of glasses that you can fit. But you didn't think about that when you were younger because you're thinking, now that he has time, now he can't read anything because his glasses are broken. That was just, it was heartbreaking. It was really heartbreaking. Like Audrey says, it was depressing. It was. But as Chris is saying, the writing on those shows was tight because think about this. For Twilight Zone, Rod Serling, so he would write it was a weekly show. So it took him a week he would write, he was a producer, he was a writer, and he was a director on most of those shows. He was doing all of that. He was writing the show, producing the show, directing the show, and it had to be done with a real tight time frame. I mean, the man was insane in terms of how he had to have been working because when did he sleep? He was basically doing everything, and that show lasted for a long time. Right, exactly. Yeah, having all the streaming and the net go out. It was interesting how that you say that. Oh yes, to serve man is the name of the title. See, this is the crazy thing is I remember these titles like the way they are because the name of that the one Dawn is to serve man, and you think, oh, it's gonna be a cookbook to help man, but to serve man. But Heather, that you say that there was a few weeks ago when YouTube went down, and I felt it. It was like, whoa, like I was trying to look something up, and YouTube went down. I said, oh, let me just look at it, and I realized we're really dependent on these things now, like YouTube and Google and the internet, that we have to kind of learn to unplug and be able to do things without this stuff. Like if I didn't have the dictionary on my computer, I'd have to go to the dictionaries that I have on my bookshelf to look up words. It's crazy because it's so convenient. I can just type a word. I have a dictionary open, boom, and it's there. But if not, I have to go back to the way I did it when I was in school. It's like open these these huge. I have dictionaries that are like this big, this thick, and there's 3 of them. And it's the whole alphabet. It's like crazy. That's what we have to do. Paige says, surround sound. I remember the OG Battlestar Galactica with Sensurround. Yeah, basically, it was, yeah, but that's the way it was. And so the Ziegfeld was one of the first theaters, and the Ziegfeld's still there. We drove by it a few months ago, where it had the speakers all along the sides. And so, especially when the destroyer came back, or when you hear a TIE fighter, it would go like that, everyone would duck. Everyone would go, whoa, what is going on? Because that's how real it felt inside the theater. It's like that surround sound was insane. And it was the first time feeling surround sound. It was a great, great experience. My first experience with Star Wars was incredibly memorable, as you can tell. So that's why I'm writing sci-fi. Yeah, if I can't feel it in my chest, I'm in the wrong place. Yeah, it should be like, let's see. I'm trying to remember a movie that I saw that was like that. I know there was one. I'm trying to remember where it was. It was like 4D. So there was water, and I got hit with water. It was like a crazy experience. But I think that was in UK. I went to see Dunkirk. And yeah, I went to see Dunkirk, my sister-in-law, and it was like a 4D experience or something like that. So when there was water in the actual movie, you get spritzed or something like that. And there was another place where I took the kids for a summer camp, one of those shows, they had a 4D experience. And if it was raining, and then the chair in front of you would hit you with water. The aquarium, yes, the 4D experience. Yeah. When all the TVs went to color, I don't know if I didn't get to really experience black and white TVs too much because I don't go back that far. I do remember them because we did have one, but I was right on the cusp when when color was like it became the feature. Not just color, Technicolor. It was amazing. It was incredible. Everything was color. It was vivid, and you have to have this. I also remember when the televisions were um, furniture. They weren't just televisions; they were furniture. It took two to three people to bring the TV into your house. So, Rick, welcome. Happy holiday. Laura, have a great day, great weekend. Thank you so much for dropping by and saying hello. And make sure I hope everything is going well physically. So you're doing okay. Yeah, so that's why the sci-fi story is coming out. That's why it's being written. But I haven't neglected the blackjacks. So I love the idea of the blackjacks, and it's a lot of fun. But this one had to happen. So that's why. That's a long-winded way of saying that's why. Did I to bribe your mom with a color TV? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me see if I should get to because we have a bunch of questions. I think I should get to the questions early. Unless you guys have any questions of your own, this would be a good time to ask them. And as I address these questions, the questions are here. So, you know. Yeah, I was the remote. I was the eldest, so I was the remote. There's no, go change the channel. I had to actually go and change the channel. So I was the official remote. No one's walking off unless you have a crane. You're not walking off with one of the original. So my RTV was a television, and it was an LP. So it had the record player on top, and it had something else on the side. It was enormous. It was huge. No one was walking away with that. Once it had sat somewhere, once it was placed somewhere in the living room, it didn't move from that location without major reconsideration because it was so big and so heavy. And I remember when I was a little kid, I actually got because my dad had to get the spare vacuum tubes. Our TV had vacuum tubes, and these were the tubes that were used to actually, the TV help you see the TV. So we had spares. I used to play with the vacuum tubes because to me the vacuum tubes look like spaceships. So I would use the vacuum tubes and use them as toys and play with them. Yeah, they were monsters. They were enormous, like enormous. Okay, let me get to some of these questions. They're right here next to you guys here, so I'm just gonna read them. Audrey is keeping her streak alive because last week was a carpool. No, last episode was a carpool Kaffeeklatsch. So here we go. Audrey says, if you can go back in time, and before I go, thank you for all the questions. Today we have a double feature of questions, so thank you. You guys are amazing, and the questions always help the show. So thank you so much. Question, Audrey. If you could go back in time and grab one item for your 20s, what would it be? Wow. Well, if my 20s, that's a hard one. I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know what I would grab from my 20s. One item. For historical purposes, it would probably be one of the early consoles because they're worth a lot of money right now, and some of them are in museums. It's too many. I can't narrow it down to one. I really couldn't. Actually, that's so hard. There's just so many things that I would want to grab. That's kind of like if there's a fire, what would you grab first? Now it would be like make sure my family's out and my computer and anything. Make sure we have any pertinent information like important papers. But that's now. But back in my 20s, so many different things that I might grab. So I couldn't narrow it down to one. But that's a great question. I will consider it, Audrey, because it's a really, really great question. Next question. With which of your characters do you most relate? With the one that I write the least, apparently. Gray Strider is the one that I relate the most to, which is strange. So everybody thinks it's either Monty or Simon or one of the other characters, but it's always been Gray. And I've always said that it's been Gray because Gray is a very particular character to me personally, that I have a certain affinity for how Gray is. Maybe because he's older than the other characters, maybe because of the way that he is in terms of the stories. But Gray is definitely the one that I have the most affinity for. It's also the one character within all of the stories that I have to get into a very specific mindset to write. Like for Monty and Simon, I don't really need to step into a mindset to write M&S stories. It's almost always present. I can crank out a Monty and strong story easily in terms of writing it. So I can step into their how they would speak, what they would say, how they would act. But with Gray, I kind of have to get into his head, or I guess access his head, his brain, and then be able to write the story. You know, it's different. It's a different because he's older than all the other characters. Like he's older than Mount, he's older than Simon, he's older than most people he encounters. He's also kind of the last of who he is, like the last of the Night Warden, although Coda is the Night Warden. He has a whole different type of approach and perspective on life. Also that he's dying, but he bonded with the sword to prevent that from happening. And there's the next story is going to delve into that more, why he did it. So that takes kind of a shift in terms of perspective. His voice is always accessible, but I kind of have to step into that voice if that makes sense. And so that's the one that I relate most to, because that's the one that's closest to who I am. Because I've always been type of a Gray character, even growing up. I'm the eldest of the siblings that I'm part of, so I always kind of had to watch out. I lost my dad at a young age, so I kind of had to be their dad. I was their brother, but also kind of their surrogate dad in a way. Um, then even growing up in the neighborhood, I was one of the eldest of my group, and so I had to watch out for everyone and kind of have to guide them and show them. So I can relate to what Gray is doing. And even nowadays, where all the groups are gone, I'm kind of the last of the Mohicans of the area that I'm in. All my friends have either passed on or moved away, so I'm like the last one holding the line, kind of thing. So that's why. So that's why I relate so much to Gray. I do have Simon's snarkiness somewhere buried in me, or else I wouldn't be able to write it. And I do have Monty's fastidiousness to a certain degree and kind of way of being, but they don't define me so much as Gray's kind of grumpy, cantankerous, get off my lawn attitude does. That's more Gray, that's more me. So that's why. All right, Audrey, what sport do you wish you were really good at? Oh, geez. Well, the sport that I was really good at was handball, which is an inner city sport, so it wasn't recognized. Back when I was playing it, it wasn't recognized on a national level. Now it is. Now it's really big, and now you can go to other countries and play handball. But back when I was playing it, you only really found it in inner cities or in big urban places. There were handball courts in New York City, obviously. There were handball courts in Florida, three-wall courts that you could play at. I believe California had some, but it wasn't like widespread. What was coming up when I was playing was racquetball, which is an easily translatable sport for me. Like I could play racquetball, and I have played racquetball, but it exploded and it became really big. So if I was going to be good at anything, a sport that I can really be good at, it would be something like racquetball, tennis. I loved tennis. I loved watching it. I played it a few times. It was just something that I didn't like the concept of having to hit the ball over the net, and have to be in a very specific place. Which is why I like the action of handball more than playing tennis. I love watching tennis. I grew up watching McEnroe and Bjorn and so many of the greats. I grew up watching them, but I couldn't play it. And I had the opportunity to play, but I couldn't. If I could have been good at tennis, I would have tried to pursue that one. Tennis is a great sport, but it just wasn't in the alignment for me. So there you go. Okay, great questions. Great questions, Audrey. Thank you. So Chris's question next is, if Ezra knocked on my door and said it's your time to go, he better be bringing pastrami. You're only allowed one memory, one moment from this life. What would it be? Oh, geez. You guys are these only one thing. I'd have to cheat. So it would have to be the birth of all my children and the memory of meeting Dolly. That's it. And I bring that one up. The last one, I bring it up to her all the time. So not just because she's here. She knows I hope when we first met. But the memory of being there for all my kids, because I was there for the birth of all my children. So I would want that memory. So you're gonna have to make an exception and let me have those memories. Period. So that's it. Um, that's a good question though. Kathy, and he better have pastrami. Kathy Mazoko, that's Mazoko? Yes. Asks, will there be more Peanut stories soon? Peanut is very much like Gray in the writing world that we have. That she's like spice. You can't like you have too much spice in a meal, it messes up the meal. You gotta sprinkle peanut in every so often. You can't have too much peanut. Like the next story that I'm writing, The Substitute, there'll be peanut there. So that will be peanut in that story. But I can't have peanut everywhere. One, because she's so strong, and two, because she's such an unknown entity still. And I'm kind of working on what I want her main strength to be. Working on a whole different branch of magic that I think will define what Peanut is, who she is, what she is, and how powerful she's going to become. But I can only do that if there's scarcity of it. I can't put too much Peanut because then it loses the allure, it loses the mystery. So I can't put too much Peanut everywhere. And that's why you don't see Peanut in all the stories. You see her mostly in Brew and Chew. You'll see her in the Patreon stories. You see her, sprinkled in here and there. She's definitely in M&S, but only when they go to the school. And she's had her own stories, but again, like Gray, and I just told you, I just gave you a 3-minute dissertation why Gray's one of my favorite characters and the one that I relate to the most. And yet, it's the one, in case of the series, it's one that I've written the least. That's just the way it goes sometimes. But yes, there will be more Peanut stories. Peanut, especially Peanut and Kai stories, there'll be more. And more Peanut and Cece. Definitely those two. Think of Peanut and Cece as the female version of Monty and Strong. But that's going to develop into. Debbie de Medici's Elliott says, hi, I started the series with Tomb Yards and Butterflies. I felt like I was playing catch up. Was there a book before that would explain Simon's curse and date? What is the order of reading? I'm on Stormblood, but feel like I've missed out on important information such as Frank. Frank isn't really part of the Monty and Strong series. Frank is in the Night Warden series, Debbie, if you're watching this later on. In terms of the order, that goes back to these authors who write these long series and don't number their books. I don't know why they would do things like that, really. In terms of this particular author, it's like, who wrote like that? Wasn't Terry Pratchett like that? Who wrote? Yeah, I'm just following Terry Pratchett's method. That's basically it. Because he wrote a whole bunch of books and he didn't number any of them. Okay, so I'm doing the Terry Pratchett method. That's my new story. That's what I'm sticking to. There is a book that explains Simon's curse. It's a short story and it's called No God is Safe. So if you want to read how Simon met Monty and how he got cursed, not why. Why is actually being developed kind of 29 books later, we're talking about it. So you're not playing catch up because Frank doesn't figure so much into the Monty and Strong main series. He's part of his own series, which is the Night Warden series. But eventually, in the Night Warden series, there's going to be a book, or at least a large portion of a book of why Frank and how and why Frank ended up the way he did. It's alluded to in the Brew and Chew a little bit, but in the actual Night Warden story series, it's going to be a deeper dive into how Frank ended up the way he did, why he ended up how he did, and so forth. So that's coming later on. But yeah, so I hope that answers your question. You're not playing catch up. It's just that it's not in that series. All right, let me go to the next batch of questions. So those were the questions from 2 weeks ago. These are the questions for this week. Okay. Audrey's still keeping her streak because we put the questions this week. All right. Chris asks, have you ever flown a kite as an adult just for the joy of flying a kite? No. I've never flown a kite as an adult. As a kid, I've done it, but never as an adult. It's a lot of fun. Just that we don't have that many wide open spaces here in New York. You have to go like to Central Park, or Flushing Meadows Park, like big parks. where you can let the kite go. Like when you have to let a kite go, you have to really let it go. And here, you have too many buildings that would kind of get in the way. So you let it go, and then it get hooked on wires or trees or a building, and you lose your kite. So that's why. No, Peanut is not in the Frozen Fire universe plane at all. No. Fate of the Dark Mages doesn't have Peanut at all. That's a whole different dimension area. So that's why, Chris, I've never, as an adult, I've never flown a kite. But it's a lot of fun. It really is. There are times you think you're gonna lose the kite too. If you let it go really far, you have a lot of twine. It could go really, 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 like you could almost lose sight of it. It's so far away, and then it almost feels like you're gonna lose it. But that's fun. That's that's the fun part of flying a kite. Susie asks, oh, she's referring to have you seen the cover, the image for this week's Kaffeeklatsch where Monty is like arms up and the background is purple and there's a bridge in the background? I don't know which bridge it is. Oh, it's a Brooklyn Bridge. She's remarking on that cover, which is the cover for a book that's coming in the future. I'll tell you what number book. It's for book 35. 35. I can't tell you the title. No, I'm not telling you the title. It's for book 35. So it goes, she goes, this is an incredible cover, as always. This may be my fave. Maybe. Is that a new Monty model? He looks younger. No, model's the same. Monty has never changed. It's the same guy. He looks younger because his hair is pulled back. Funny because there's going to be a comment about Monty's hair in the current book. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, it's the same model, and all the covers for M&S look incredible. And if you were able to see all the covers from Two Nerds and Butterflies to present, you'd be able to see the evolution of how amazing the covers have become. Because in the beginning they were kind of plain. They were still really good. They were kind of plain. And then they started becoming really colorful and really amazing and really like magical and like characters like wow. So it's one, because the technology has improved, and two, because it's just they've created amazing covers. So DDD gets all the credit. The Rain Stock Design gets all the credit for those fantastic covers. When you say thanks for some reason the model Dark Mages Must Die from the authorities is not given. Yeah, Dark Mages Must Die is definitely Fate of the Dark Mages. Heather says, would Monty be marked in a different way than Simon? Yes. And I can tell you, no, I can't tell you. But I can't tell you. Yes, he would be marked in a different way. Hello, Linda, welcome. You're onto something there, Heather, but I can't say what. Dawn, let's see. Need more stories of young Cecil. Oh, the young Cecil stories. That was a really fun stories in Patreon. If you haven't read it, what was that called? Do you remember? Hey, it's the young Cecil story. Where Cecil is. I don't remember the name of the story. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name right now because there's so many story names in my head. But that was a really, really good story. I really like that story because it demonstrated that you could be powerful in a different way. You know. Rick asks, question about Fate of the Dark Mages. Is this a different universe than the M&S stories? Yes, it's a different universe than M&S stories. If you notice how Dark Mages are treated in M&S and how Dark Mages are treated in the Fate of the Dark Mages universe, it's very different. In M&S, Dark Mages are the birth of Sunatron. That's the name of that story with Cecil. Thank you, Ben. So in the M&S world, Dark Mages are feared, but not exactly liked. Most of them are evil, or they're given into evil tendencies. In the Frozen Fire world, and Fate of the Dark Mages are marginalized and they're hated, but they're not so much feared. They're feared in the sense of the potential that they have to overthrow the control that exists in them. But they're not overtly feared. It's a whole different dynamic. So it's very different worlds, which is why Val is trying to rejoin the sword, and embark on some romance somewhere. I'm sure there's going to be romance somewhere in that story. No, Gray's a dark mage. He's not a gray mage. Come on, I'm not going to. That's way too on the nose, Rick. Gray, the gray mage? No, he's a dark mage. And it's said many times that he's a dark mage. It's just that he he became a dark mage to save the woman that he loved, and so he did a cast that was wrong, he shouldn't have done, and it ended up costing him his life. And he still didn't save the woman that he loved. And so, but he became a dark mage when he decided, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that she survives. And it didn't work anyway, and it doomed him. But he's a dark mage. Yeah, he's like I said, Gray. The source for Gray runs really deep when I write it. That's why I have to get it. That so that's the reason why one, there aren't too many Night Warden books, because it does take something out of me to write them, and that's why there are so few dark Night Warden books, because he's written so well that it takes too much out of me when I write it. It's like I write M&S. I can write M&S all the time. I can't do that with Night Warden stories. It's just a weird thing. I don't try to understand it, but I do know that the sources are different places. So that's why. It's a much darker place. To write Gray, I have to go. I mean, he's a dark mage, right? But I have to go to dark places, the dark places of my life, the dark memories that I have, like dark memories of like being abandoned by my dad. He never abandoned me, but he died when I was 7, and so being left alone, I have to tap into what that feels like and bring that to the present, and then use that to write. And so it's like that's not a fun place to inhabit, which is why a lot of people say, well, I'd love to get into your brain and say, hey, you don't want to visit my brain. My brain is a scary place sometimes. It's not a fun place. Okay, next and last question, and we still had like a few minutes afterwards. Tamashi, Chris Christmas says, as an artist, I always felt like a piece of myself became part of the painting and carving. Those are my best works. As a writer, do you feel the same way? Yeah, it's kind of like what we're discussing right now with Network. There's always, and in every story that I write, there's a piece of me. It's interesting. I've always held the opinion that would make the best actors, because writers are every character in every story. They write they're every character, no matter how different the characters are. The writer is every character. So being an actor, I think writers can be great actors if they can make the transition from a written media or written medium to a film medium to a visual medium. Because writers, when they write, have to be every character. You have to be everyone. You have to write everyone, and if you're doing it well, no two characters feel the same. You have to give them enough of a distinct personality so that they don't seem like when I write Simon or when I write Monty, it's two very different characters. I'm the one writing both of them. So there's a part of me in every story, and you just feel like each story is part of. Now it's different when I'm writing romantically, but that's only because I'm not used to writing. That's But every other story, when I write the females, like one of the things I've heard a lot recently is that male authors don't know how to write females, and I'm like, why not? You don't have to just write them how you would write anyone that's badass. The sex isn't really so much a factor in it. You have to look more at the personality and what created that person to be that way. And I think that's the difference. When you write a character, if you write the character as a person, it changes how that story is read if it's a person. If it's just a character, it's going to come across as flat. If you can write the character as a person, like someone you can actually meet, it's a different approach entirely. And then you're definitely going to leave a part of you in that story, because you've brought someone to life in a way. So every character that you write as a writer or as any creative, I mean, if you look at, so I recently heard, this is a recent excerpt, the statue of David. Everybody knows the statue. It's the statue of David, Michelangelo, right? The piece of marble that was being used for that statue, Michelangelo wasn't the first one to find it. There had been several sculptors that had looked at that marble prior to Michelangelo and said, "Nope, that's not for me. I can't do anything with this." And when Michelangelo saw it, before he even started chiseling at the stone, he had to have seen the David inside that marble. But when he was asked, he just said, I just took off all the parts that didn't belong. and that's how he created David. And if you ever see the David, like if you ever actually see the David, because I've seen pictures of David to scale, it wasn't a small piece of marble. David, even though he's on a plinth, he's on a platform, the actual statue of David, it must have been a humongous piece of marble. And so to see that marble and to say, okay, there's this inside of there. It's the same thing writers do with a story. You get the story and then you say, okay, this is what's inside that story, and this is the part of me that I'm going to use to write that story. And you always leave some part of you in the story. And that's why some stories drain you. They take a part of you. Like after I write a book, Dolly and I always have our sake ritual, which is we do sake and we celebrate the writing of the book. I always need like a day or two, kind of like to just like let my brain decompress from writing a book, even a Mountain Strong book, but more so than just the way it is. Chris says it's like going to a different tap, choosing out of many. It's true, yeah. And Wendy says it's a gray area with dark mages, basically. But yeah, the frequency with which I write Gray Strider, like Night Warden stories, it's just the way it is. So yeah. Right. So Paige, but see that's the brilliance of like writing as well. The marble had flaws, so other sculptors said it couldn't be used, right? So where other sculptors dismissed it, Michelangelo saw the flaws and saw how they worked for the David that he saw in them. But it's the same thing when you're writing. You can't write perfect characters. You could, but the story is not going to work. You have to write characters with flaws, and it translates almost saying because it's still a creative thing, right? And so you have a character, and you start out with a story. And you have this character, and you see, and you say, okay, this character has this X, Y, and Z flaws, and that's how I'm going to use these flaws within this context, so I could utilize those flaws to make the story better and to make the character relatable. And you have to do that as a writer. If you don't do that, if you don't give your characters flaws and they come across as perfect, no one's going to resonate with your character. It's because no one's perfect. Everyone has flaws. Everyone has something. Everyone on this planet has something that makes them imperfect. And so if you write a perfect character, it's hard to, because we have to have, like when you're watching a movie, the suspension of disbelief, it's even deeper in a book, right? You have to really have a suspension of disbelief, and you fall into the book, and you really want to become part of that story, and then many times you relate to that main character. But if the character is perfect, you're like, I have nothing in common with this character. Why would I want to? I can't enjoy the story. And so, like Michelangelo saw the flaws and used them. You have to create flaws in your characters and use them and make them part of the character. And that's how it has to be. And I'm not saying it's easy for all you writers out there. I'm not saying this is easy at all. But what I am saying is that this is what you have to do to make characters that are memorable. Like many readers have told me that they love Monty and Simon and things like that. I love Monty and Simon too, but they have real flaws that I try to show. If you're reading the stories, and that's one of the great things about M&S, when you're reading the stories, there's so many different layers. But if you really read M&S, you'll see Monty's flaws, and you'll see Simon's flaws, and how they react to the world that they're in, and how they even react with each other, how they react with the enemies that are coming against them. The flaws come forward. Yes, they have an incredible camaraderie, and yes, they care for each other. But there are real flaws that they have to overcome, and in many cases that they have overcome to become even stronger as brothers. But there's some real flaws there that we all have. There's the flaw of arrogance. There's the flaw of denial. There's the flaw of acting first and thinking third, not even second. All those things are in there. So the characters have to be real. They have to have flaws, and you have to expose those flaws so that people can resonate with the characters. And so this Kaffeeklatsch has become an episode of writing, basically. Chris says, if the characters are not real to you when writing them, how could you expect readers to read? You can't. I'm about to sneeze. You can't. When I first started writing Monty and Simon, they were real. They were real people. Like when I did the sci-fi story that came to me, the main character that came to me, and it's a female, the main character, and she came to me with so much sass, and I was like, oh my God, How? So just write it. You got this. You can do it. Just write it. This is another Monty and Strong situation. Don't give me any attitude. You have to do this. What would you do? When they come to you like that, and I know I say it like this, and it's not, I'm not being mystical or anything, but when the characters come to you like that, fully formed, you are foolish to deny them. Really, you are. The black text didn't come to me fully formed. The black text I created. You want to write a sci-fi story, and I created them. This story, it came to me like boom, you're gonna write this now. I'm like, no, I got nemesis, I got stuff to do. I can't be writing sci-fi right now. Okay, no, you're gonna be writing sci-fi now, and this is how you're gonna write it, and this is like, you're kidding me. But it's foolish to deny that because it doesn't happen often. I've been very fortunate to have it happen with Bonsi and Strong. I've been very fortunate to have it really happen with Night Warden and a few other stories. But and now this one, but it doesn't happen often. It doesn't happen enough for you to be dependent on it. So when it does happen and you're open to it, you're foolish not to accept it or not to jump on it and say, okay, let me at least do this, get it down, write a quick chapter, and make sure I can preserve that so I can jump into it and expand on it. So just remember that because the ideas are there, but you have to be open to them. That's all. All right, I think that's the end of this class today. This writing class, the MoB Kaffeeklatsch episode 158 writing class. You guys have been amazing. I can't say that enough. You guys are fantastic. Wow, that was a good episode. I'm enjoying this episode. Even if you guys weren't here, and I'm so glad you are. But even if you guys were here, it's such a good episode. It's a great episode. To be able to discuss writing, to be able to discuss everything that we discuss. It's great to have you here. And like I've always said, I wish we could just have a place where we could be together, hanging out, drinking coffee, maybe having croissants, and uh, just just hanging out and talking Monty Strong or any other characters or writing or life in general. It'd be fantastic. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for making the show as awesome as you usually help make it. This was an incredible show. So you know my 3 Bs, right? Be kind, because it doesn't cost you anything to be kind, right? Be unstoppable, because no one can stop you besides you. And be uncommon, because there's only one of you. There's only one of you in this entire universe. There's only one of you. Embrace being uncommon. And I want you all to have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for being here. Our next Kaffeeklatsch will be on the 19th. And then after that, it's next year. Wow, this year is just gone. It's already gone by so fast. Keep a lookout for Nemesis, the Fantastic Fathers, and all. Don't forget to join Patreon and read up on the assignments, the Morgan's Man. Don't forget to leave your reviews for Frozen Fire, and I'll make sure to keep you guys posted on all the stories that drop. I don't even miss that minute. You're here, and that's what matters, Michelle. Guys, have a great, great day, and let's go out with some amazing music.